My name is Nicole Mooney. I'm 39 years old, and I work as a vice president of marketing for a mid-sized tech company. It's not flashy, but it's solid. I built my career from the ground up. No shortcuts, no lucky breaks, just a lot of long nights, missed birthdays, and early mornings. If you've ever felt like the only one in your family who had to claw your way to stability, then you probably already understand me. A few months ago, I hit a major milestone. I bought my dream home. It's a beautiful little place, tucked away near Torch Lake, up in northern Michigan. The kind of spot where the mornings are quiet, the air smells like pine and water, and the lake glows like glass when the sun hits it just right. It's not huge or extravagant, but it's mine, and it's peaceful. I needed that peace. Not everyone gets it. Some people think buying a home by a lake means you're showing off, but for me, it wasn't about impressing anyone. That place was a reward for every single time I chose work over fun. Every time I paid off someone else's mess. Every time I swallowed my frustration to keep the peace. It was the first thing I ever bought just for myself. I want to ask you something before I go deeper into my story. Where are you watching from? And more importantly, have you ever had someone in your family take advantage of your success? If you have, leave a comment. I read them all. You're not alone. Let me give you a little background. I grew up just outside of Lansing, Michigan. Nothing fancy. We lived in a small 3-bedroom ranch home in a working-class neighborhood. My dad, Roy, was a shift supervisor at a tool and die plant. My mom, Susan, worked on and off as a receptionist. Money was always tight, but the biggest difference in our house wasn't money. It was how my parents treated me versus how they treated my sister, Jolynn. Jolynn is 4 years younger than me, and she was always the favorite. No one ever said it out loud, but you didn't need to. When Jolynn got a bad grade, it was because the teacher didn't explain things well. When I got straight A's, the reaction was silence. Jolynn got picked up early from school for hair appointments, soccer practices, and anything else she needed. I took the late bus and made my own dinners. I don't say this to be bitter, it's just how it was. I started working when I was 15, babysitting, cleaning houses, working at the local diner, anything I could do to save money. I knew early on that if I wanted out, I'd have to make it happen myself. I put myself through college, community college at first, then transferred to Michigan State, graduated without a single penny from my parents. Meanwhile, Jolynn, she dropped out of a cosmetology program halfway through, said it wasn't the vibe. Then she bounced around from job to job, boyfriend to boyfriend, town to town. And every time something fell apart, which was often, she went back to my parents. And they always took her in. No questions, no boundaries. I used to resent her for it, but as I got older, I started to feel more sorry than angry. Jolynn never got pushed to figure things out. She never had to stand on her own. But that didn't make things easier for me. In fact, it made everything harder, because every time she messed up, I ended up involved. The pattern was always the same. My mom would call me crying. Jolynn's in trouble again. She made a mistake, but she's trying. Can you help, Nicole? Just this once, and I did. Again and again. Paid off a credit card. Lent her money to get her car out of impound. Covered her rent once when she got evicted. Each time I said it would be the last. Each time I knew it wouldn't be. So when I bought the Lakeside house, I didn't tell anyone right away. I closed quietly, moved in slowly, and took my time furnishing it. I wanted to enjoy it without comments or questions or guilt. The house was everything I needed. Quiet, safe, mine. Eventually, I did invite my parents and Jolynn up for a weekend. I figured maybe it would be nice. Maybe they'd be happy for me. They weren't. My mom kept asking how much the taxes were and if I was sure I could keep up with the maintenance. My dad made a few jokes about how the house was too much for one person. Jolynn was mostly quiet, but she kept walking around like she was taking inventory, asking about the alarm system, asking if I had a safe, asking weird things. That visit left a bad taste in my mouth. I didn't invite them back. At the time, I didn't think much of it, just chalked it up to the usual family tension. But looking back now, it was the beginning of something I never saw coming, something that would change everything. Then came the Chicago trip. It was a major campaign I'd been working on for months, a full product rollout with a national partner. I was leading it, overseeing the launch, making the calls. My team was excited, and I was proud. It was the kind of opportunity you wait years for, the kind of thing you work late nights and early mornings just hoping to get. The trip would be 3 weeks. I'd be staying in the city, moving between meetings, and finalizing contracts. A lot of pressure, but I'd done harder things. The weekend before I left, I had dinner with my parents. I figured I should stop by, keep the peace. It was the usual: meatloaf, mashed potatoes, awkward questions. "So, who's watching the house while you're away?" my mom asked, passing the rolls. "No one. It's locked up tight. I've got cameras and a neighbor who checks in," I said casually. Jolynn perked up. "You're leaving it completely empty for 3 weeks?" she asked, tilting her head. "I'd be nervous about break-ins." "I'm not," I said. "Everything's secure, and besides, nobody knows I'm gone except you all." They exchanged a look, just a flicker, but I caught it. My dad leaned back and said, "You know, you could always let Jolynn stay there while you're gone. Keep it lived in." I laughed lightly. "Thanks, but it's all set. I've already made arrangements." I changed the subject, but the air felt different after that. They were quiet, more than usual. We ate dessert in silence, and I left soon after. As I packed for the trip later that night, I couldn't shake that look between my parents. It was subtle, but something was off. Still, I told myself I was overthinking. I always do that before big work trips. I locked up the house, checked the cameras, sent a thank you card to my neighbor for keeping an eye on the place, and headed to Chicago that Monday morning. Before I left, I sent a group text to my family. "Heading out. Please, no emergencies while I'm gone. I'll be back in 3 weeks." My mom replied with a thumbs up. My dad sent a short, "Safe travels." Jolynn didn't reply at all. At the time, I brushed it off. I had no idea what was coming. I didn't know that while I was busy closing a career-defining deal in Chicago, they were getting ready to close something else, my front door, for good. I'd been in Chicago for about 10 days when I got the voicemail. It was from my neighbor, Carol. She's retired, lives 2 doors down from my place at the lake. We'd talked a few times over coffee, nothing too close, but friendly enough. Her message was short. "Hi, Nicole. I wasn't sure if you were in town or not, but I noticed some people going in and out of your place yesterday. I didn't recognize them. Looked like a couple, and maybe a realtor. Just wanted to check in and make sure everything's okay. Call me back when you can." I froze. It was late, around 11 p.m., and I was sitting in my hotel room, going over numbers for a presentation. At first, I thought maybe Carol had the wrong house, or maybe someone was just using the wrong driveway. It's not uncommon around there, especially with all the vacation homes. Still, it didn't sit right. I called her back. No answer. Probably already asleep. I checked my security cameras. Nothing live, just the last updates from 3 days ago, which was odd. I'd set them to update daily while I was gone. Then I texted Jolynn, "Hey, you haven't been by the lake house lately, have you?" No response. I called my mom, straight to voicemail. Same with my dad. Now, my parents aren't exactly glued to their phones, but they always pick up if I call more than once. I tried again. Still nothing. That's when my gut started talking. I barely slept that night. I kept checking the footage. Nothing new. The system was either disconnected or someone had disabled it. I got out of bed, paced around the hotel room, and started going through every message I'd ever gotten from my family since the day I left for this trip. Nothing suspicious, but nothing particularly warm either. Just short, dry responses. The next morning, I was sitting in the hotel lobby, drinking bad coffee when the email came through. Subject line, "Just want you to hear it from us." It was from my dad. I remember the way my stomach dropped before I even opened it. like my body already knew. Nicole, we've sold the Torch Lake house to help with Jolene's situation. She got in deep again, and we didn't have another choice. It was the cleanest way to settle it quickly. We know you've been successful and doing well, and we figured you'd understand. You don't really need all that space anyway, right? The new owners are moving in next week. Love, Dad. I read it twice, then again. It made less sense each time. Sold my house? My house. I dropped my phone on the floor of the hotel lobby. Not because I was being dramatic, but because my hands started shaking, and I couldn't hold on to anything. People were walking by, chatting, checking out, living their lives, and I was sitting there trying to understand how the thing I worked my whole life for had been sold like it was nothing. I called my dad. No answer. Mom? Voicemail. Jolene? Nothing. That's when I remembered something I hadn't thought about in years. When I had emergency gallbladder surgery 7 years ago, I gave my dad temporary power of attorney, just in case something went wrong while I was under. I signed the form at the hospital. It was supposed to expire after the surgery. I never followed up on it. I don't know why. I guess because it didn't seem important. I was young, and it was one of those things you think you'll get to later and then forget about. Now I was panicking. I called my lawyer back in Michigan. Steve and I had worked together a few times when I bought the house. He answered on the second ring. Nicole, everything okay? No, I said. Everything is absolutely not okay. I told him everything. The email, the voicemail from Carol, the silence from my parents, Jolene. He didn't interrupt me once. When I finished, he let out a long breath. They can't legally sell property they don't own. Unless, he paused, unless there's an active power of attorney in place. I think there might be, I said quietly. Send me everything you've got, the deed, the original sale documents, any paperwork related to that POA. Right now, I did. Within 15 minutes, I spent the rest of the day in meetings, somehow holding it together, smiling when I needed to, answering questions, pitching strategy. But inside, it felt like everything was crumbling. That house wasn't just real estate to me. It was safety. It was the reward for a life spent putting others first. And now it was gone. And the people who took it weren't strangers. They were my own family. Later that night, Steve called back. The house was sold 3 days ago, he said, for about $1.1 million, well below market value. The sale documents include what appears to be your signature. But I'll be honest with you, Nicole, it doesn't look like it came from you. I've seen enough forged signatures to know something's off. My throat tightened. So what do we do? I'll contact the title company first thing in the morning. We'll open a fraud investigation. I'll also need to pull any official documents filed during the sale. If that power of attorney was used, and it was still active, we're going to have to dig deep. I need to know who bought it. We'll find out. But right now, Nicole, don't contact your family. Not yet. Let's do this the right way. I hung up and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the hotel carpet like it held answers. I didn't cry. I was too angry. Too numb. They sold my house. Without asking, without warning, and they really thought I'd be okay with it. But they had no idea what was coming next. Steve called me again the next morning. I was sitting in the hotel cafe, poking at a dry piece of toast, barely tasting anything. I've reviewed the documents, he said. It's exactly what we suspected. They used the old power of attorney form from your surgery years ago. And your signature on the sale agreement. Definitely a copy of your older documents, not fresh, most likely scanned and pasted. So what does that mean? I asked, though I already knew. Technically, the sale went through, he said. From a legal standpoint, it'll be considered valid. At least until we can prove forgery and misuse of authority. That gives us grounds to contest it, but it won't be fast. I leaned forward, rubbing my forehead. So my house is gone, just like that. For now, yes. But not permanently. If we can prove they misused the POA or forged anything, we'll need to file a formal fraud claim. And Nicole, we're going to need to involve the police. That's when it hit me like a truck. My own parents had crossed a line most people don't come back from. I wasn't dealing with family drama. I was dealing with a crime. After we hung up, the messages started coming in. First from my mom. Nicole, I hope you're not upset. This was a really difficult decision. Jolene needed help. She was in serious trouble. We didn't know what else to do. Then my dad. You always bounce back. You've got money. It was the only option. We didn't think you'd take it this hard. No apologies, just justifications. They didn't ask how I was doing. They didn't even acknowledge that they'd crossed a line. Instead, it felt like they expected me to say, "It's fine," and move on, like I always had. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My hands would start shaking every time I tried. I got through the rest of my meetings that day somehow. I smiled when I needed to, kept my voice steady, but inside I was unraveling. That night, I cried in the shower. Not quiet tears either, the kind that rack your whole body. It wasn't even about the house anymore. It was about the years, the sacrifices, the blind loyalty, and how easily they threw it all away. The next morning, I told my boss Monica everything. I didn't plan to, I just couldn't hold it in anymore. We were sitting in a conference room, reviewing last-minute slides for the pitch, and I just broke down, right there in front of her. She didn't say much at first, just closed her laptop and waited for me to get it all out. When I finally finished, she nodded slowly. My ex-husband forged my name to open 3 credit cards in my name while we were still married, she said. Took me 2 years and a lawyer to undo the damage. So, no, you're not overreacting. This kind of betrayal cuts deep. Then she pulled out her phone and made a call. A few minutes later, she handed me a number. That's our corporate legal advisor, and I also know someone else you should talk to. Terrence Holloway. He's a private investigator. Used to work white-collar crime cases for the state. Now he takes on independent clients. You'll like him. I didn't know what to say. I just nodded. Monica had always been a steady presence at work, but I never expected her to be the one to help me hold it together. I called Detective Brenna Coyle that afternoon. Steve had already given her a heads up, so she was ready for me. Nicole, thank you for calling, she said. Her voice was calm, direct. We've opened a case. We'll start with your recorded statement and copies of all documents your lawyer has provided. If the power of attorney was expired or misused, that strengthens the case. And we're already requesting the transaction history from the title company. I gave her everything I had. Emails, texts, photos of signed documents, even screenshots of messages from my parents. She didn't flinch. Don't worry, she said. We've seen things like this before. It may feel personal, but the law doesn't care who did it. It only cares that it was done. After that call, I contacted Terrence Holloway. He was older than I expected. Late 50s, maybe. Calm voice. Kind, but firm. I'm sorry you're going through this, he said. But I'll be honest. Family financial fraud is more common than most people think, especially when there's one responsible sibling and one the parents always feel the need to rescue. I didn't have to explain much. He'd seen it all. We agreed he'd start digging into Jolene's recent financial activity, her accounts, her contacts, and most of all, what situation was so urgent it required selling a house behind my back. That night, I sat on the edge of the bed in my hotel room, staring out at the city. The lights were beautiful, but I felt disconnected from all of it. Like I was moving through someone else's life. I thought about every moment I'd worked late, every bill I'd covered, every holiday I'd spent alone because someone in the family needed space. All that effort, and they still treated me like a backup plan, like an ATM. But this time, I wasn't going to be quiet. This time, they'd picked the wrong person to cross. It didn't take Terrence long to find cracks in the story. 3 days after I hired him, he called me while I was in the back of a taxi, heading to another client meeting. I'd barely had time to say hello before he jumped in. Nicole, we've got something, he said. I asked him to talk slowly. I had a notepad open on my phone. I needed facts, not feelings. First off, your sister's debt. It's real, but nowhere near what your parents claimed. Jolynn owed about $130,000, most of it from credit cards, payday loans, and some unpaid rent. Definitely not good, but not $1.1 million bad. I leaned my head against the window and closed my eyes. They said she was in deep, I said. That it was urgent. It was urgent, Terrence said, but not because of her, not entirely. That's when he brought up Warren, Jolynn's boyfriend. He'd always rubbed me the wrong way, something about the way he talked to people, like they owed him something, even when he was the one freeloading. Terrence continued. Warren's got a record, nothing that stuck, but a few arrests, tied to loan shark operations in Detroit and Grand Rapids. He's been on the radar for a while. My heart dropped. So Jolynn got mixed up with him, and, what, he threatened her. Not just her, Terrence said. Your dad, too. From what I can piece together, Warren loaned Roy a chunk of money about a year ago. Your dad used it to cover personal losses, mostly gambling. I gripped the seat in front of me. I felt sick. My dad's been gambling, I asked. Since at least 2018, he replied. Casinos, online sports betting, you name it. Quiet, controlled at first, but it picked up fast. There were withdrawals from his retirement account and 2 personal loans. One of those loans is tied to an LLC Warren controls. Now it made sense. The sale of the house wasn't just about Jolynn's debt. It was about covering up a much bigger hole and making it look like it was all about Jolynn. That was just easier to sell to me. Terrence said, your parents didn't just lie about the amount. They used your name, your house, and assumed you'd stay quiet, like always. That last part hit the hardest. I'd always been the one who fixed things, quietly, efficiently, without dragging the family name through the mud. But now that silence had cost me everything I worked for. They sold my house, I said quietly, more to myself than to him, to clean up a mess they both helped make. And they didn't expect you to fight it, he said. They figured you'd be angry, sure, but that you'd get over it. Because that's who you've always been. I thanked him and told him I'd follow up later. Then I sat in that taxi and stared at the cars around me like I was in a different world. For years, I'd carried the family weight, paid the bills, smiled at gatherings, sent cards, answered midnight calls, all while being told I was too serious, too cold, too busy. They didn't think I'd notice. They didn't think I'd fight. That night, Detective Coyle called to check in. I've spoken with the title company, she said. The sale happened fast, way faster than normal. They presented the power of attorney as current, and since your dad was listed as having full authority, there were no red flags on the surface. And the signature, I asked. Definitely copied. Possibly from a prior document you'd signed when purchasing the home. I sighed. So they forged it, wrapped it in a lie, and sold it to cover gambling debts, and I was the only one who didn't know. They kept it quiet, she said, even among themselves. There are signs that your mom didn't know the full extent either. I didn't want to hear that. Not yet. I need to talk to them, I said. I advise against it, she replied. At least until we finish the first phase of the investigation. Emotions are high. They may say things that complicate the legal side. But I couldn't wait. I needed answers. I sat down that night and wrote everything I'd learned. Jolynn's real debt, my dad's gambling, the connection to Warren, the forged documents. I wrote it all down like I was preparing for trial. And maybe I was. The next day, I sent a message to my mom. Call me. We need to talk. She called within 5 minutes. Her voice was soft, nervous. Nicole, I know you're angry. We didn't mean for it to go this far. We were desperate. For Jolynn, I asked. Or for Dad? Silence. Do you even know how much money he owed? I continued. Or were you just going along with it because it was easier than facing the truth? I thought it was for Jolynn, she said. Your father said, he made it sound. It's not just her, I said. It's him. He's been gambling. For years. More silence. I have a detective and a private investigator. I know everything now. You didn't just make a bad choice, Mom. You broke the law. I didn't know, she whispered. I swear, I don't know if I believe that anymore. She started crying. But I couldn't feel sorry for her, not yet, because crying didn't change the fact that I was the one left cleaning up a disaster I never created. And this time, I wasn't going to do it quietly. I flew back to Michigan the following week. There was no celebration, no welcome home, just cold reality waiting on the ground. I didn't go back to a house, that was gone. I checked into a small hotel just off the highway, clean, quiet. Nothing like my Lakeside home. I dropped my bags, took a breath, and texted my mother. I'm coming over, don't tell Dad. Be there in 20. She responded with just, okay. Before leaving, I called Detective Coyle. I'm meeting them, I said. She didn't try to stop me. I'll be nearby. You give the word, and I'll be there in minutes. I parked in front of my parents' place. Same white siding, same porch swing, same faded garden flag that had hung there since high school. But it didn't feel like home. Not anymore. My mom opened the door before I knocked. Her eyes looked tired. She stepped aside without a word and let me in. The living room was exactly how I remembered. Family pictures on the wall, a throw blanket over the couch, the smell of coffee and something fried. But the energy was different, heavy. My dad was sitting in his recliner, legs crossed, as if nothing had happened. The TV was on, muted. He didn't stand up when I walked in. He just looked at me and said, "So, you're back." I sat down across from him, pulled my laptop out of my bag, and placed it on the coffee table. "Let's not waste time," I said. "I know everything." He smirked. But it faded fast when I opened the first file. I showed them the loan records, the retirement account withdrawals, and the payments made to Warren's shell company. I pulled up security footage from a hidden camera I'd installed in my study months ago, just in case. It showed my dad at my desk, digging through drawers, looking at old documents. My mom's face turned pale. I kept going. Emails, phone records, the forged sale contract, a screenshot of the digital signature that matched a document I'd signed 5 years ago. My dad tried to speak. "I did what I had to," he said. "You wouldn't understand. It wasn't just about Jolyn." "No," I cut in. "It wasn't about Jolyn at all. It was about you. You gambled away your savings, and instead of facing it, you sold something that didn't belong to you." My mother was crying now. She turned to him. "You told me it was for Jolyn," she said. "You said it was urgent, that she owed people who were going to hurt her." He didn't respond. Then, as if on cue, the front door opened. Jolyn walked in, carrying a grocery bag. She stopped cold when she saw me, her eyes darting between us. "What's going on?" she asked. She looked worn down, thinner than I remembered. Her left wrist was bruised. "Sit down," I said. "You need to hear this too." She dropped the bag on the counter and came to sit beside my mom. Her arms were crossed tightly, but her face was scared. "I know about Warren," I said. "I know about the threats, the money, the loans. I know you owed money, but not as much as they told me. And I know Dad used you as cover." Jolyn's mouth opened slightly, then closed again. She looked at our dad. "You told me Nicole would never find out," she said, voice shaking. "You said she was too busy with work to even notice." "Jolyn," I said, turning to her. "I have a detective parked outside right now. She's ready to move forward with the case. But I came here first because I need to know. Are you in or out?" "In what?" she whispered. "I want full confessions," I said. "From all of you. I want financial records, therapy, cooperation with the police. If you all come clean, I'll talk to the prosecutor, ask for rehab over jail. But if you lie to me one more time, I press full charges, and we do this the hard way." The room was silent. My dad looked angry. My mom looked lost. Jolyn looked like she was about to throw up. "I'm done being the one who fixes everything while the rest of you pretend it's not your fault," I continued. "You used me. You stole from me. And you assumed I'd forgive you like I always do. You're our daughter," my dad finally said. "We didn't think you'd go to the cops." That's the problem, I said. You never thought I'd stand up for myself. Well, now I am. Jolynn wiped her eyes. I didn't know he was using the money to cover his gambling. I thought it was just Warren threatening me. I believe you, I said. But it doesn't change what happened. I'll talk to the detective, she said softly. I'll tell the truth, I nodded. My mom looked at me, hands trembling. We never meant to hurt you, but you did, I said. And you don't get to decide what happens next. I stood up, gathered my things, and walked to the door. I paused. This wasn't a warning. This was your chance to do the right thing. Then I stepped outside and texted Detective Coyle one word: ready. Within 2 weeks of that meeting at my parents' house, formal charges were filed. My dad confessed to forging the documents and using the old power of attorney to push the sale through. He admitted to taking money from his retirement and losing most of it to gambling and debts he never told anyone about, not even my mom. The final amount was staggering. More than $400,000 gone. He avoided jail time, but only because he cooperated. He was sentenced to 2 years probation, required to attend weekly addiction counseling, and barred from handling anyone else's finances, including my mom's. From that point forward, my mom got community service hours and had to complete a financial responsibility course through the court. She avoided harsher punishment because there wasn't enough evidence that she actively participated in the fraud. But the judge made it clear her willful ignorance had consequences. That part probably hurt her more than the sentence. Jolynn voluntarily entered a rehab facility. She told Detective Coyle everything she knew about Warren. His intimidation, how he pressured her into keeping quiet, how he had access to my dad's financial info. She cut all contact with him. I believed her, and I hoped she meant it. As for me, I had to keep living my life. I stayed with Monica's sister, Nina, for about 6 weeks. I didn't ask. Monica offered, and Nina welcomed me without hesitation. She had a guest room and a dog named Penny, who sat on my feet when I was too anxious to move. It was a strange time. I was still showing up to work each day, closing deals, leading strategy calls, acting like I had it together. But every night I went back to someone else's house and slept in a borrowed bed. I wasn't okay, but I was moving forward. The people at work surprised me. Word had spread about what happened, and instead of gossip or pity, I got support. Quiet, respectful support. Jessica, my assistant, started managing my schedule more carefully, blocking out time for me to breathe. A few coworkers pulled together money for my legal bills. They didn't make a big deal out of it, just handed me an envelope with a card that said, "You're not alone." I cried in the bathroom after that. Then came the article. A local journalist, the kind who writes community impact stories, reached out. She said she'd heard about the case and wanted to cover it, not for the drama, but to shine a light on financial abuse within families. At first, I said no, but after sitting with it for a day, I called her back and agreed. The article came out 2 weeks later. The headline wasn't sensational. It read, "When Family Crosses the Line, a story of fraud, recovery, and standing up for yourself." She didn't use my full name. She told the story honestly but gently. The comments section filled up with messages from people who'd gone through similar things. Parents stealing their kids' identity, adult children draining bank accounts, family members forging documents because they thought they were owed. That's when I found the support group. It met every other Tuesday in the basement of a community center. About 15 people, all ages, mostly women. The stories they shared made mine feel painfully familiar. There was a woman whose brother had wiped out her savings while pretending to help her with online banking. Another who had taken care of her parents for a decade, only to be written out of their will without warning. Betrayal wears a lot of faces. We didn't sit around and vent. It was real talk. What legal steps to take, how to rebuild trust, how to set boundaries without losing your mind. For the first time in months, I didn't feel alone. My neighbor Carol, the one who first left me the voicemail, checked in on me regularly. She even drove me out to the lake one afternoon just to see the neighborhood again. We parked down the road and sat in her car with the windows down. "That house wasn't just wood and paint," she said. "It was your win. And I hope you never let anyone take that feeling away." I didn't say anything. I just nodded. I've started to realize something. The family we're born into isn't always the one that carries us. Sometimes the people who show up, who ask how you are, who sit with you when you can't talk, those people become your real support system. Monica, Jessica, Nina, the women in that support group, Carol, they became my safety net. A few months into all of this, I began talking with a lawyer about starting a nonprofit. Nothing big, just something to offer resources and legal guidance for people facing financial abuse from family. It's early days, but I've already gotten calls from 3 women who read the article and wanted help navigating what they were going through. I don't have all the answers. I'm not healed, but I've found a new purpose in the middle of this mess. As for my parents, we're not close. We speak occasionally, mostly about updates related to the court. My dad is in counseling, and my mom sends me stiff updates about her community service. I keep the boundary firm. No small talk, no birthdays, no pretending. Jolynn writes me letters from rehab. She says she's learning things about herself she never wanted to face. I write back, carefully. I'm hopeful, but cautious. I lost my home, but I found something else, my voice, my backbone, and a whole community of people who've walked the same painful road. I'm building, again. This time, it's not just for peace, it's for power. It took a while, but I finally bought a new place. It's not on the lake. It doesn't have sweeping views or big windows overlooking the water. It's about 20 minutes outside the city, in a quiet neighborhood with tall trees, a small garden out back, and a screened-in porch that catches just the right amount of evening sun. It's not what I thought I'd end up with, but it's enough. It's peaceful, and it's mine. This time around, I didn't overthink the decorating. I kept it simple, clean lines, soft lighting, fewer things, but things that matter. I kept a few framed photos, one of me and my college roommate on graduation day, another of the lake from my old porch, taken just before I left for Chicago. That house is gone now, legally transferred to the new owners. I fought to get justice, not to get it back. And I've made peace with that. I've also made peace with the fact that my relationship with my parents will never go back to what it was. We talk occasionally, short calls about practical stuff. No more guilt trips, no more emotional messes. I keep my boundaries clear. They know better than to ask for anything now. Jolynn and I are slowly rebuilding something. It's not like we're best friends, but there's honesty now, which is something we never had before. She got out of rehab and took a job at a local animal shelter. She says it's the first time in years she's felt useful. She sends me texts every now and then. Photos of the dogs, updates on her therapy, the occasional, "I'm thinking about you." I still don't fully trust her, but I appreciate the effort. Trust, I've learned, isn't about forgiving everything and pretending it didn't hurt. It's about deciding who gets to be close and on what terms. I'm careful with that now, very careful. I still go to the support group, not every week, but enough to stay grounded. Hearing other people's stories reminds me I'm not the only one. There's a strange comfort in that, knowing that betrayal, as awful as it is, connects people too. And recovery isn't something you do once, it's something you keep choosing. I started writing again. Not just legal notes or journal entries, but actual pieces about boundaries, about healing, about being the one who always held everything together and finally realizing you don't have to anymore. A few of my essays got picked up by a nonprofit newsletter that supports victims of financial abuse. They asked me to speak on a panel last month. I was nervous, but I said yes. I talked about what happened, what I learned, and why I'm not ashamed to say I pressed charges against my own family. Because sometimes the only way to break a cycle is to stop making excuses for it. Now, I sit on my back porch most evenings with a cup of tea. It's quiet here, I can hear birds in the trees and kids playing a few houses over. I've met my neighbors. They wave when I walk by. It's not flashy or big, but it's steady, and I've found I value steady more than I used to. The other night, I sat outside while the sun was setting, the sky turning orange and soft pink. I thought about everything that's happened, what I lost, what I gained, and the line I finally learned how to draw. And I thought about you, the one listening to this. Have you ever been forced to choose between protecting your peace or protecting your family? Have you ever felt like the only way to keep things calm was to keep yourself quiet? I know how hard it is to break that pattern. I know what it feels like to be the strong one, the dependable one, the one who keeps things moving even when your world is falling apart. But I also know this: you deserve better than being taken for granted. And standing up for yourself doesn't mean you're unkind. It means you've stopped settling. So I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below if you've ever had to stand up to someone you love. What helped you? What did you learn? Your story might help someone else feel less alone. You'd be surprised how many people carry pain in silence, thinking they're the only ones. And if this story resonated with you, if it made you feel seen, even for a moment, please like, share, and subscribe. I'll be sharing more stories like this, real ones, honest ones. The kind we don't always talk about, but need to, because sometimes the hardest part isn't what happened, it's what happens after. And you don't have to go through that part alone. Thanks for listening, and take care of yourself. You're worth that much and more.